it doesn't matter, like I said, where you come from or where you start, but it's about your future that you want to create for yourself and not anybody else's opinion that they have of you, but what God has for you and what his vision that he cast upon you.
Welcome, everybody, to the Warrior Podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Sherman Portillo. He's a young entrepreneur. He's a marathon runner, even longer than marathon distances, and a fitness instructor. He tries to inspire people through physical fitness. So please welcome my special guest, Sherman Portillo.
Hey, how's everybody doing? I just want to say, Frank, thank you for having me on. It's definitely been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure meeting you. Especially how we met, just two warriors going after the vision of fitness.
So in your memory, because I have my own memory of how we met, tell me how you remember how we met and see if we can match our stories here.
Well, man, there's a lot of energy that day and a lot of positive vibes and just trucking through the stairs over at Swallow Cliff, which is something that I love doing just to get my mind, body, and soul, prepared for the day. I saw Frank just killing it over there, man. And it was really awesome. I know we also met Carl Curry, who was another person who was on that goal path as well.
I'm an old man, so I'm trudging up and down the stairs, and I mean, you're flying up and down the stairs, and you didn't have a shirt on. Your body's just shredded and ripped, and you just had enthusiasm. We're getting to the top of the stairs, and you were like, And then at one juncture, we were walking around that little half circle from one side to the stairs to the other. And at that juncture, you were like right next to me. I'm like, dude, I've been a gym rat my whole life, and I'm watching you, and you're doing it, man. You don't get a body like that without hard work. And I gave you some kind of compliment, and you're like, thank you. And we had like a real quick conversation, and we covered a lot of ground in that conversation. And you're like, I'm Sherman, what's your name? And then later on, you went to the top of the stairs, and you were promoting one of your business ventures, right? You had
correct.
What was that you had some kind of power drinks up there, correct?
Yes, I was promoting our excess energy drink, and we do this all through a referral-based business. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and I appreciate all the support that I was getting over there as well.
Right. So we'll get into all your entrepreneurial endeavors. Me being an ex-fitness guy like you, tell me about some of your great accomplishments, because I know you've run some crazy distances, yes?
Yes, and honestly, it always hasn't been like that. I kind of started off through smoking a pack of cigarettes a week.
Get out.
And yeah, man, it was crazy. I was not going down the right path, and I kind of just wanted to make that change. And the change started very slowly. I moved over to Colorado, and I kind of just had this desire of, I want to change. I want to be healthy. I want to be prosperous. And I started off just kind of running to work every day, 0.7 miles. I still remember that. And then it kind of just grew into having that desire to run my first marathon this year, which was absolutely awesome. I know that I heard a couple of your podcasts as well. I know you did 3 Chicago marathons, so
very good.
That was awesome just to know that somebody else was on that path. I remember I knocked out 1,000 push-ups in a day, and that was a promise I made to my buddy, and it was like 8 o'clock at night, man. And I was like, I don't want to wake up tomorrow and be like, I know he's going to ask me. I know he's going to ask me if I did it. And I just started knocking them out, and that was kind of one of my biggest accomplishments, I feel, to just raising my mind and my belief level.
Awesome. So how did you do the push-ups? Did you go, I want to do sets of 50? I'm going to go till exhaustion each set. How did you divide that up, or did you do them in a row?
Yeah, I was, so I started off with sets of 25. The more and more that I got, it was kind of easy in the beginning, you know what I mean? But once I started hitting around, 700, that's when the real challenge started. And it was, it became something that went from something physical to something very, very mentally.
And then anybody who's into fitness, they know like when you're doing like a lot of reps and you get to the point where you hit like exhaustion on your muscles. Let's say you're doing sets of 25 and you do, like you said, you get to 500, 600, 700. If that 700 push up is number 25 of the set and you're struggling to get that 25th push up, the next set, you're not getting 25. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no.
You're torched now, and you're like the next set might be 21, and then the next set might be 19, right? Like your body's crashing. I had a dear friend on here. She was a Olympic caliber swimmer in college, and we talked about the red line. And the red line, when you look on your tachometer in your car, when you hit the gas hard, that needle goes into the red line. That's where the motor's operating at its peak performance. And like when you're doing your 1,000 push-ups or running a marathon or all the athletic things you've done, you're redlining. And that red line is where life's lived to the fullest. And most people, they never redline one time. They never push themselves in anything to the point where they reached failure, And that's the thing about the discoveries we made about physical fitness. You get addicted to that red line, don't you?
Oh yeah. And a lot of people, I believe that's because, a lot of it has to do with belief level and what people believe about themselves. I was talking to a gentleman and, I told him I had my marathon medal on and I'm like, did you ever think about running one? He's like, yeah, man. The conversation carried on and it just got to the point where he's like, well, what? I would never be able to do that though. And, just to encourage everybody out there, if you wanted to take that step toward fitness, it's completely possible for you. I believe anybody can do it. And like I said, it's more to do with the mental game than it is the physical part.
Yep. And I love that part of your mission is to try to help people believe in themselves, right? That takes both of our missions. My first marathon, I was fit. I was running 4 to 6 miles a day on a treadmill. My buddy Phil was next to me, and I worked out every day. I didn't take a day off. And I track it. So I work out 355 days a year, and the 10 days I missed would be we were traveling. We flew to Hawaii 1 year, and that was a whole 12 hours in a plane. And my buddy Phil, who used to run next to me, and then we do weights and stuff, he's like, I want to run the marathon this year. Do you want to run it with me? I'm like, hell no, dude. I'm not a marathon runner. And he's like, well, you could do it. I know you can do it. So anyway, it was no. And then the Friday before the Sunday marathon, while we were on the treadmill, he said, will you run half with me? Run the first half with me. And then my buddy's going to jump in at the halfway mark and he's going to try and, push me to get to the end. I'm like, all right, well, all right. So we went to McCormick Place and got our packet on Friday before the marathon. Now it's a lottery, I think. There was only 19,000 runners that year. We got out there and we started running. And, I'd never run more than like 9 miles on a treadmill before. And so when I got to the 9 mile mark, I'm like, okay, I just tied my record. And then I just said to myself, the next mile is a new record. And when I got to the 10 mile, I'm like, yeah, I just broke my record. 1 more mile. And that 1 more mile was what got me through it. So now I get to the halfway point where I could drop out and I was still feeling good. And his buddy joined us. So I'm like, well, I'm the furthest from the finish line. So what am I getting? I can't grab a cab. So I might as well keep running, right? Because I'll get closer to the finish line. So I kept running. And then we got to Comiskey Park, Sox Park, whatever you want to call it, which I think is around the 18 mile mark. And man, it was like The Walking Dead. Like that's typically where most people hit the wall. Phil hit the wall. I hit the wall. His buddy was fresh. He didn't care. And Phil's like, can we walk a little bit? I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, we can. So we walked a little bit and then we jogged a little bit and then we walked a little bit. And then the second restart, I'm running and maybe 5 or 6 minutes. And I look and Phil's gone. Like, he dropped off and they didn't tell me they were stopping. So I running backwards and I'm looking back. I didn't see him. I'm like, well, I ain't going to stop my movement because if I do that, I'm dead. So I grinded through it and I finished, which was surreal. when I got to the end, I waited for Phil. He came a few minutes after me, and he's like, "I told you, you asshole!" Like he's like, "Yeah, I told you could do it," but I mean, that completely wrecked my body. And I said, "Well, I'll never do that again." So it took me 2 full years to forget the pain and go, "Yeah, I'm going to do it again." So I did it 3 times, but that was a red line, and that to me was pushing through the pain. That's a good feeling. You surprise yourself when you do stuff like that. Like, man, that was awesome. So, have you ever heard of David Goggin?
I have. I've read both of his books.
Yeah, well, you're a David Goggin, my friend. So, all right. So now you said you wanted to talk about this, about your childhood and, raising yourself up from a dark place. You had told me that you were adopted. So take me through a little bit of that story.
Correct. And I believe kind of that's where my inspiration to kind of lead people to believe that no matter where you come from or no matter how dark your past is, that you can utilize that past to create whatever future you want. Mm-hmm. I was adopted. I have me and my original blood sister were adopted, and also my brother Jack as well. He's doing great now with his musical career, so shout out to him. Always proud of him. And growing up wasn't like a fairy tale, you know what I mean? We got all the gifts, and we went to Disney World and all that stuff, but behind closed doors, we're suffering some pretty mental and physical abuse from our parents. And throughout all this, my father was a police officer, and I kind of always wondered why, you would go out and protect people on the streets, but then, come home and realize what's going on in the house. But through that all, I've called the cops a few times as well, and never did anything. My parents would just talk to them, and then they would go away. And at that point, I really felt alone. I felt like I was kind of just battling every single day in just a hostile environment. And that's why I kind of wanted to tie it into the story, to just let people know that, it doesn't matter, like I said, where you come from or where you start, but it's about your future that you want to create for yourself, and not anybody else's opinion that they have of you, but what God has for you and what his vision that he cast upon you is.
The stories about parents abusing children, I know it's something that I don't understand. I mean, my mom was a crappy parent, but she didn't abuse me like physically. She just wasn't there for me. But I have a lot of friends. The father beat the hell out of them. And I think it's worse when you're adopted, because you don't have that blood bond, and whatever abnormalities go through your head in terms of like reprimanding or whatever you want to do to your children, you don't have the blood bond, which can curtail that a little bit. Here's what I could say about police officers, because you said your dad was a police officer. A police officer is like a career combat soldier. They go out every day and they see the worst of humanity. Nobody ever calls them up and says, "Hey, I wanted you to come over because I made some sandwiches for you. You guys do a great job." It's always, it's a shitstorm for them. And it plays with their mind just like a combat soldier, and it messes many of them up. It's a really hard job. And I'm not making excuses for your father. I'm just saying police officers have a lot to deal with, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Now, I also know that sometimes abusers were abused, and they were abused by people who were abused, and it's that cycle that keeps repeating over and over again. And I always tell people who are in that cycle, you are the circuit breaker. You are the one to stop it, right?
Yes.
Your father might have been abused and his father might have been abused, but the buck stops here, right? And I think that's where you're at, yes?
Oh, most definitely, man. And I like how you kind of put that perception of police officers out there, because, growing up, I can definitely see that, my dad is always just looking at the negative side. We go to a concert, he's always like, "Watch out, there's killings over there and shootings over there." And, that was a big motivation, taking that from my past to kind of start Speak the Truth Network, which, very well aligns with the Warrior podcast and just speaking truth and light to people. And because I've always seen that negative side of everything's going wrong. My parents always watched the news, and that's a bunch of garbage,
Yep.
all negative. And I just wanted to be I just wanted to be that person to shed light through that darkness.
Speak the Truth Network is your creation.
Correct.
So do you have a website?
I do it all through Facebook.
Okay, so we'll put a link to that, in the podcast so people can see what you're doing. Yes.
Most definitely.
Speaking of Facebook, I've been watching on Facebook, and you do a lot of videos and stuff. One of the ones I really loved, and it was crazy, but you were running at night, and it was late at night, and you were pissy a little bit. You're like, man, I don't want to be out here. But the message was, I'm out here. You remember that one?
Yes, I do.
And I woke up the next morning, dude, and I remembered the video, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't one of my high energy days. I'm going in. Just that kind of stuff gets people inspired, and I know that's part of your mission. And I just wanted to compliment you on that. Was awesome. So when you label this Speak the Truth Network, frame that out for me. What, you know what I'm saying? What is your methodology that you would call it that?
I would say that the truth is just realizing, kind of like we talked about, that no matter where you come from, that it's not really, the opinions of others that really shape and form you. It's kind of just paying attention to more of the truth, what God has for you and the blessings that are supposed to be bestowed upon your life. But, here's the thing of it, we talked about kind of those generational curses. And I truly believe that comes from not overcoming your past and living in that past. So instead of helping people create a new future for themselves, you're just kind of recreating the negativity in your past for other people as well.
This is in my book, and tell me if you agree with this. This will be interesting. To me, there's only two knowns in life. There's our past, and there's this present moment. Now, if you're a person of strong faith, you believe there's something beyond this, but I would argue it's not a known. So we might not be in complete agreement there. But of the two knowns, our past and our present moment, our past, we can take that data set and we could twist it into a nightmare. And if we do that, like I had a terrible past, then it shackles us in the present. We can never truly be happy if we create a nightmarish story of our past. Or we could take the same data set, the exact same data set, and turn it into the opposite. Could be a story of love and victory, hardship and victory, and say, like me, I'm 59. I've taken that past of mine and I've twisted it into unbelievable story to the point where I am so filled with gratitude that I've already lived two full good lives. That's how I frame out my past. So what that does for me is that takes away all my fear. If you fill yourself up with gratitude, all the bad stuff exits your brain, your soul. And then when you live your life without fear, your brain is optimized. You see clearer, you see the truth clearer.
Yes.
And then, so what do you think about that frame out of the past? Because you did mention the past. Have you done that?
Yes. And I love it, man. And one of the things that really hit me was you're talking about on your bad days versus really bad days and your podcast, and you're kind of going through, the perception of a bad day. And, people might be like, my girlfriend broke up with me or this and that. But, there's people going to war who are having their arms blown off,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, what really is a bad day?
Yeah. So how do you, with, the abuse, whatever, we'll just call it abuse. And I don't need to know what it was in particular. How do you frame that out in a way that serves you? You see what I'm saying? How do you not have, animosity, anger, or angst about that?
One of the things that I really started to realize is, that my parents may have been carrying that anger. And, I'd rather it be me that experienced that, because I know that I'm strong enough to take that.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe somebody else wouldn't. Or maybe that helped them, release their anger. And if it had to be on me, that's all right.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I have a dear friend, Gib, and Gib has MS, which is degenerating, your muscles degenerate and stuff. And this kid was a a top collegiate swimmer, great athlete. He's in my book. He's mentioned in my book as one of the greatest warriors I've ever known. And I called him up one day and I said, like, how do you keep a positive thing? Like some days he can't even walk. He said the exact same thing you said. He said, I would rather have it be me than somebody else. And that's amazing to me. That's badass. That's like the pinnacle of strength, in my opinion, when you say something like that. So get a little teary-eyed here. That's crazy. You're a marathoner. You're a fitness guy. You have the Speak the Truth Network. What is your objective with the Speak the Truth Network? What is the mission? And what is Sherman's mission in general?
Well, first and foremost, I believe that the mission for me is, living out that truth. I don't want to be a travel agency. I want to be the captain, so I want to walk with people on that path of truth and just to continue to push myself every single day, whether that's with reading more books or indulging in more podcasts or, listening to more audios or physically with, continuing on with the progression of doing push-ups every single day, calisthenics and getting my body right. But it's always to be the example. With Speak the Truth Network and, just spread the love, spread the positivity and create a space where people can come to really hear the truth about themselves is that you are worthy. No matter what happened to you in your past, you are worthy and you do deserve better.
It's so interesting because my friend Sarah, who was on here, and she's a life coach by degree now. And you're saying the same things that she's saying. And, maybe I'll put you two guys together because I didn't really go into this at the beginning, but I'm going to go into it now. And that is the concept of energy. We are, our bodies actually throw out a real measurable energy. It's an electromagnetic field, and the brain is the government for the energy. And some people, they have a real strong life force. It could be either positive or negative, but their brain is pushing out so much energy that they've measured this electromagnetic field out to over 10 meters, which is like 33 feet. And like energies attract, and unlike energies repel. So what I tell people is sometimes friendships dissolve, relationships, marriages, whatever, because the common energy that brought them together is not there anymore, because we're all in a state of movement. Every human being is moving down some path, and their energy is in a constant state of change. We're either progressing or regressing, but nobody's staying the same. And sometimes we crisscross we intersect each other like this, and right at that flashpoint, we have that energy that keeps us together. But then as time goes by, the bonding force goes away, and it's nobody's fault. That is life. That is my belief with energy. Like energies attract, and you have a strong life force, and I have a strong life force. And the fact that we ended up on those stairs at the same point in time there. I mean, you could have been up and I could have been down. I could have been up, you could have been down, but we came together at that one flash point, and that's all it took. And I feel like that is a product of our energy. What say you about that?
Man, honestly, it's been a crazy journey learning about this. And the first time I kind of realized this concept, I had no idea what it was talking about. Think and Grow Rich, chapter 11, I believe it was, on just sexual transmutation. And
tell me about that, because I did not read that book.
Man, I was like, what the hell is this guy talking about? And especially because the book was written in 1937 or published in 1937. It just kind of has to do with, kind of like you were saying, that we're all a force of energy, and it can't be created or destroyed. And we have the ability through our brain, which is an electromagnetic kind of switching station, to transmute or shift or change our energy to a different being, which is I believe a transformation process. And one of the scriptures that I believe that kind of goes with it is be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I believe that renewing comes from, renewing your energy.
That's cool. So that's kind of like what I said too. So tell me about your spiritual side. How long have you been immersed in the Bible and Scripture? And I deduce that you're a Christian, yes?
Correct.
So, how long have you been doing that?
It's been a kind of a whole life journey. But the real kick in with it kind of happened when I found out that my girl was pregnant. I wasn't really in a correct headspace, man. I was kind of all over, just living in fear. And I remember one day I went to the gym and I overheard this guy, Bill. Shout out to Bill, man. I love you. Thank you so much for introducing me to the church. And I I was just listening to him, and he was talking to his son about, God and spiritual things. And I just kind of had just this draw to him and what he was saying. And afterwards, I went up to him and talked to him, and he told me about Victory City Church. And ever since I've been going there and kind of just indulging in reading scriptures every day, my complete life changed.
Wow. So when was that? When was that turning point?
That was about a year ago now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, this Victory City Church, where is that located?
That's over in Joliet, down Essington Street.
And then is there a pastor there that really moves you? They have several pastors.
Oh, yeah. They have Pastor Rusty, Pastor Jeff, and then Pastor John is the youth pastor.
Awesome. Dude, that's an amazing like move in a little different direction.
Oh, yeah.
That's a transformation right there. So you said prior to that, you were living in fear. Like, what were some of your fears before that?
That I wasn't going to be able to provide for my son, or because I was still living at home at the time. And honestly, I was just broke. I didn't really have any money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got this baby on the way. The relationship isn't really, we're always arguing. And, I wasn't really getting along with people in my house because I was just kind of so stuck in this thoughts of negativity. I wasn't able to produce anything positive from it. Mm-hmm. So that shift in going to church, that was kind of the change in mindset. And like you said, it was, the things that were happening were still the same, but the way I was responding to them were different, which allowed me to get a different outcome.
It's interesting that you could be so driven, with your fitness. I wrote in my journal a long time ago when I was a teenager, it takes a strong mind to make a strong body. You have to have a degree of determination and fearlessness to do all those things. But then when the pendulum swings the other way, now all of a sudden you have fear, and that little demon inside you that says you're not good enough gets a hold of you. Even though you've done all this other stuff and you are a badass, the demon gets a hold of you and gets you backpedaling.
Exactly.
And it happens to all of us. I talked to my friend Sarah in the podcast, and she fought that demon for a long time, but through her faith also helped her, out of the darkness. And you're kind of new into it, a year into it. I am definitely going to introduce you to, I'm going to send her the podcast, because her whole life coach group are all females. And when they try to work with young people and they have these seminars at the schools, no boys sign up. It's all girls. And, she's talked to me sometime about maybe me going on stage with her, but you may be the missing link to get the boys in, right? Because boys are boys and girls are girls. I told her my superpower is not females, it's males. And I'm because I'm a male, and your superpower is with females because you're a female. So, so we're going to work on that for sure. I wanted to talk to you about a subject. It may be blindsiding you, but this is a subject I've struggled with my whole life, and that is racism as it exists in the United States of America. I wanted to get your take on that. Like, do you feel like there's something in the system that is slanted against you because of your skin color?
Actually, that's a really great question, man. I grew up in Chicago, and then fairly early we moved to Homer Glen, which I believe out of the class of like 600 and something kids, there was probably about 5, African-American kids that graduated. So I was always kind of in that environment of where, people expected me to act a certain way because, I'm black, or I had to have my pants sagging. And I believe it's just all down to perspective, because I learned at a young age that, you know, I don't have to be defined by the stereotypes that people put on me. And you can either look at it in a negative way on certain things and say, oh, well, this happened because I'm black or something. But, you know, I always like to look at it the positive side is, you know, I have the advantage. You know, if there's all white people working somewhere, you know, I definitely have an advantage going in because they want to be known to accept that diversity. They want to be known as a company who accepts everyone. So you can either, you know, let those thoughts drag you down, or you can let it, you know, kind of rise you above.
I love that. I love that. And we'll dig a little deeper here. So in my book, I talk about racism in two ways. I reference in my book controllers. The controllers are who really control the world. It's not a president or a world government. It's a power above that. And I believe that they fuel racism because it's the old divide and conquer. If we hate each other, we're easier to control. Okay, so there is a force that's fueling racism. Whatever we determine what it is, it's done by design, in my opinion. So I take racism on from that perspective, but then I take it on from the other perspective, which I preempt by saying, I'm not black, I'm white. So I have no idea how it is to be a black person walking in the United States of America. But what I do know is, will you live a better life as a black person in the United States of America if you are constantly focused on racism and how unfair things are? Or will you live a better life if you go, I can do anything I set my mind to? And you just said that. So those are my own two perspectives. I'm ignorant because I'm not black, but I do know the power of the human spirit. And that is not a product of skin color, because we all have that fire in us. What do you think about that?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can choose to be condemned, or you can choose to let your situation empower you. And, you know, I truly believe that it's from some higher evil, because it's all an illusion. You know what I mean? It's just that you've got a group of people who have now taken on and believe that this is happening to them, or it's an illusion.
And then on the other side, it is also a behavior that is put in people's minds. You know, like from a non-black person, a lot of the stuff that their perceptions, they're also being fed an illusion, like you like to say. It's the same on both sides. And again, I think it's done by design, and I freaking hate it. During the George Floyd stuff, and then there were all kinds of shootings they were putting on TV. I know a lot of police officers, and they're of all colors and ethnicities. And I had specific conversations with all of them because I wanted to know, I go, is there racism in the police force? And they all basically said, we are all blue. When I get in the car and a guy gets in next to me, or a woman, we don't care what color you are, what your nationality is, we're all blue. But my cousin Al, who's a retired Chicago cop, he's in his 70s, I believe. We were talking about, there was one shooting where the guy was running away, and I think he had taken the taser from the cop, and the cop shot him in the back. I go, what the hell's happening here with this stuff? I go, is this racism? He goes, it's not racism. What it is these guys should have never been cops. He said, in my day, when we went to the academy, at the end of each week, they gave us a psychological evaluation. These guys should never be cops. They don't have the temperament to be cops. And because nobody wants to be a cop anymore, they've lowered the standards. And he basically said it wasn't racism. It was just, we're putting unqualified people in as police officers. And I thought that is an interesting perception too. I was excited about this meeting because I don't think we see color at all. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, no, not at all.
So now you have a child, and I'm going to tell you this: you don't know what the hell you're doing, because nobody does. Nobody does. When they have a child, it's going to be a trip for you. It'll be a trip for you. All I can tell you about parenting is this, because I've thought through this, and this is also in my book, in the leadership chapter, because parenting is one of your most important leadership roles. Okay. I'm thinking through what makes a good parent. Is it the millions and millions of decisions we make on behalf of our child? And I had to think about that for a long time. And I said, well, I know a lot of parents who have done great work with their kids, hands-on, faithful people, and their kids didn't make it. They either completely derailed or they committed suicide. Just a terrible outcome. And I know parents who've been absolute shit parents, me in particular, and the kids turned out good. So I was like pondering this over and over again, like what is the formula here? And this is what I came up with. And this is the world according to me. It comes down to two things. Number one, your child knows that you love them unconditionally, even when you're sticking your boot up their ass. They know it. And the other is you have to live your life in such a way that you want them to live their life. That's the biggest teaching tool, because right out of the womb, they're watching you like a hawk. Everything that you do. They're watching, do you get angry? How do you help people? Are you helpful? How do you handle stress? You're teaching their behavior by your own behavior. So if you're giving it your best every day and you're redlining like you do, and you're into fitness and you're hardworking, my friend, that's the best you can do. That's the best way to be a parent, is those two things. World according to me. So I just wanted to share that with you.
I appreciate that, man. I can use all the advice I can get.
And then like I know, what not to do.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You've been had quite a volume of things like that where you know what not to do. So, man, I'm excited for you.
Which is another positive out of the past, what not to do.
Yeah, well, that's looking at that's taking the data set and turning it into a positive. It's serving you now, right? Because you man, all this stuff happened to me. Now I know what not to do, or do the opposite of it. It's pretty cool. I grew up in the 70s. Everybody partied. I had a bag of rolled joints on my kitchen table, sometimes a little vial of cocaine, and I was a latchkey kid. You know what a latchkey kid is?
I do not.
It's a term that was around then. You were, you'd go to school, you'd come home, nobody was home, you'd open the door with the key, and you were home by yourself until your parents got home from work. That's known as a latchkey kid. And I had a single mom, and she worked. So, I had a bag of pot on my kitchen table. I had cigarettes, occasionally a vial of cocaine. I've never done a drug in my life. By the grace of God, or maybe it was, I used to watch how the adults' behavior changed when they got really high. It seemed silly to me. I go, these people are adults. They don't even have control of themselves right now. Mm. And I saw people do real heavy drugs like acid and horse tranquilizers, and just lose themselves and drool. They looked like they got hit by a sledgehammer. And I became afraid of drugs. So as I was growing up, and the kids around me were doing drugs and passing the joint around, they'd pass it to me and I'd pass it to the next person, and it'd be like looking at me, oh no, man, he's okay. Don't worry about it. So that's when I learned about leadership. If you don't worry about what others think about you, and you're already alluded to this today, you rise as a leader, whether you want to or not, because you're not following the crowd. You are actually doing your own thing without any worry about what are they thinking of me. And that's what happened to me throughout my life. I've never gone with the crowd. I've gone with what I believe the truth is. And you're big on the truth.
Oh, yeah.
So if the truth is what the crowd's thinking, then great. But if the truth isn't, it's like when all through school, if I didn't understand what the teacher was saying, I would raise my hand and I'd say, I don't understand. And then they would explain it. And if I didn't understand it, still, I'd raise my hand again and go, I'm sorry, I still don't understand it. So when class would finish, my classmates would come up to me and go, well, thank you for asking that question. I didn't know either. And I'm going, well, why didn't you raise your hand then? So, we're always wanting acceptance, and it's hard for us to stand out on our own because we want acceptance. It's a human trait. We need acceptance and we need certainty. And by stepping out, you're risking that you won't be accepted by the crowd.
Correct. Do you feel that the kind of school system, the way it's kind of set up, I'm kind of wondering why they never really taught us really life skills And
Well, it's different for you than for me. How old are you?
I'm 28.
All right, you're 28. So I got you by over 30 years. When I was in school, when I was in high school, we had auto mechanics. You could go build an engine. We had woodworking. We had a class called home economics where they taught you how to balance a checkbook. We even had stoves in the room.
Really?
We did recipes. One of our projects was we had to make a pillow. Like they did teach that stuff. We had typing, everything. We don't have that anymore. So they don't have the life skill thing anymore, and that's a problem. So I agree with you there, and maybe that's part of our mission, right? Maybe somewhere down the line, like if my trajectory goes the way I want it, I want to have an academy for boys and young men to bring back the man into humanity, because our men are under siege. Women are under siege too, but like I told you, I'm not a woman. That's not my forte, but males are my forte. And I think boys and young men, they need extra help now because they're not getting it in school, and parents are too detached. That they need that male warrior spirit built back into them, because like these are going to be our future leaders. Which I wanted to finish with you with that, and tell you that you are our future, my friend. You are what will save this country and bring back all the goodness that we have. Your mission, I don't even think you know how many people you touch with your posts and your energy, because one of my dear friends told me this regarding my stuff that I put out. He goes, you may get, 20 or 30 people liking, or you'll get a few comments. He goes, but there's a lot more people out there that are watching, that you're inspiring, that never say a word. They are that kid in the classroom that didn't raise their hand, but they wanted to know, and you're showing them. You see what I'm saying? So I'll, stay on your mission, because you're our last hope, man. You're a warrior on the battlefield right now, and I freaking love it. I mean, I was honored to meet you, and I know that energy brought us together. Yes. And it was really awesome. Can we talk about what you're doing in business right now?
Yep. So right now I'm working on getting it up and running. For kind of had a little bit of technical difficulties with that, but right now we're promoting a lot of multivitamins, healthy energy drinks, healthy alternatives for that. A lot of immunity, kind of sports twist tubes and all that. All the things that are kind of essential just to keep your body up and running and healthy. Because, when you're redlining, like you said, man, it takes a lot on your body. It takes a lot of wear and tear. And just the power of vitamins and eating healthy, it can go a long way.
Awesome.
Way.
And I wanted to talk about this too, as it relates to, like you mentioned, school and education. Another thing that is something, this is just going to be an old guy telling you to be wary of, and that is when you're in a corporate structure. Like, are you in a corporate structure right now?
Correct.
So the corporate structure is not very accepting of somebody coming in who's bright, energetic, and can change the world and improve things. The corporate structure is very suppressing to quick risers. And I'm only telling you that because I'm one of those people. Whenever I was in the corporate structure, and I had like good energy and all these ideas, corporate structures don't like that. And they'll try and suppress you. So just be aware of that. It isn't you. It's just how the system is designed. I've been fired several times within corporate structures, and all I was trying to do was, hey man, let's build some profitability. Let's grow. And, by giving my ideas and injecting my energy into it, the people above you, they're usually worried about keeping their jobs more than doing their jobs, and they'll try and silence you. That's kind of how the world works. I'm just giving you a little old man wisdom about how the corporate structure works, which is why all my ventures are completely independent of corporate structure. So a realtor, I don't have to rely on a corporation. I have a construction company. I don't have to rely on a corporation. I'm podcasting now. it's more enjoyable to be your own man. But sometimes you have to rise within the corporate structure. Just be careful about pace. There's a book called 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. I've never read the book, but I know one of his first rules is never outshine the master. So you got to be careful about your bosses and the people who are above you. You have to be careful how you present your ideas. You know what I'm saying? So it's the best way I could say it. One of my best friends, he in one of his jobs, he came up with a great idea and he brought it to his boss. And then at the monthly meeting, the boss brought it up as his own idea. And he's like, "What? It's a great idea." And it was my buddy's idea. And the guy never came back to my buddy to say, "Hey, I know I took credit for that, but or he should have just said at the meeting, this was John's idea. He brought it to us. I thought it was an awesome idea. So as of right now, we're going to implement X, Y, and Z." It's so easy to be a good leader. Good leaders create leaders. You know what I mean? Bad leaders just want to be in charge. So in the corporate world, there's not a lot of good leaders.
Oh, no.
So I'm not asking to sell anybody out. I'm just telling you how to maneuver within the system so they don't chop your hands off. Well, my friend, anything else you'd like to cover before we finish?
Oh, man, just saying that's kind of the same structure in the school system. Growing up, it was always like, dumb down, stay in your seat, raise your hand. It was always to kind of, be part of the crowd instead of kind of creating your own way. So I just encourage anybody out there, man, to if you have a creative way or a creative purpose or something that that's something that you believe in, go after it, regardless of the opinions of other people, because, like Frank already described that, people aren't going to be happy if you're successful minded and they're kind of following the crowd. They're always going to try to beat you down. It's kind of like that, the crab philosophy. If one crab tries to climb up on the cage, all the other ones are going to just drag and pull them down.
That's awesome. So let me finish with this. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how happy are you?
Right now, I'd say 10.
My man.
Yes.
You're the first person to ever say that on here. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me why.
Just new opportunities. It's a blessing, honestly. I'm extremely grateful that you've opened up your studio and we're able to do this podcast. And God is working great things in not only my life, but other people's lives as well. So I'm very grateful for that.
And that's awesome. That is actually wisdom that you said that. I've had people on here say a 5. My friend Sarah said 8.5, and she's a freaking amazing. And so she said it's an 8.5. And I said, okay, well, what would make it a 10 then? And she said, well, I'm not where I want to be in business and this and that. She said a bunch of different things. And I didn't say a word. I kept looking at her, and she's like, wait a minute. I have to retract that. And I started laughing out loud on the podcast. I said, I'm glad you retracted that, because you just said 2 sentences ago that it's all about living in the present. And if your present's an 8.5 because of something that hasn't happened yet, then you're not living in the present. Your present is contingent on your future. And she thought through it. And then we talked about the red line. And she goes, shit, I've been redlining every day of my life. I go, that's what it's about. You're redlining every day. You can't do any better than that. At the end of the day, you look in the mirror and you go, yeah, girl, you redlined it today. That's a 10, right? Yes. And when at the end she said, I'm taking that with me. Thank you. And you already said it. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space.
Awesome. Well, my friend Sherman, this was awesome. I'm so proud of you and inspired by you. Keep doing what you're doing. You are shedding a strong light in the darkness. You are a true warrior, my man. We definitely need you and more people like you. Keep spreading the word. Keep teaching people. It's just, it's going to get better and better for you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, Frank.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Gratitude.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Warrior Podcast. This is Frank Lardino with my friend Sherman Portillo. And remember, everybody, there is a warrior inside of us all. Take care, everybody.